My name is Mara Caldwell, and I never thought betrayal would introduce itself this calmly. I didn't walk in on anything. I didn't snoop. I showed up to the one place that was supposed to be safe and realized the lie had been living there longer than I had. If you've ever felt your reality shift in a single moment, this story is for you. Tell me where you're watching from, and hit subscribe, because some endings deserve to be heard all the way through. I knew something was wrong the moment the host said his name. "Table for Caldwell," he said, smiling, clipboard tucked under his arm. "Right this way." My chest tightened. Not because I missed him, not because I was nervous, but because that name no longer felt like mine. It felt borrowed, temporary, like a coat I'd forgotten to return. I was already seated at the bar, halfway through a sparkling water I hadn't touched. I wasn't supposed to be here tonight. Not technically, but something in me had gone still earlier that day, the way it does right before a storm breaks. I followed that feeling instead of fighting it. This restaurant was our place. Anniversary dinners, celebration nights. The kind of place where the servers remembered our order and asked about our daughter by name. Lucas had once said this room felt like home without the mess. I believed him. The sound of heels reached me before I turned around. She was younger than me, not dramatically, but enough. Long, dark hair, soft waves, a fitted cream dress that hugged her like confidence. She laughed too loudly, the kind of laugh meant to be seen. Her hand was on his arm like it belonged there. Lucas looked relaxed. That was the first real shock. Not guilt, not nerves, not even caution. Ease. He hadn't seen me yet. The bar mirror caught them first. I watched his reflection lean closer to her ear as they waited. I watched her smile widen. I watched him nod as if she'd said something important. 15 years, one child, a mortgage, a shared history thick with compromises I told myself were love. And this was how easy it was for him to walk in with someone else. The host turned toward me. "Ma'am, are you with—" I stood before he finished. Lucas finally looked up. There it was. The exact moment. His face drained of color so fast it was almost impressive. His mouth opened, then closed. His body froze like a bad pause button. For a split second, I thought he might pretend he didn't know me. That would have been easier. "Mara," he said too softly. The woman followed his gaze to me. Confusion flickered, then curiosity, then something sharper when she noticed how everyone around us had gone quiet. She didn't step away from him. That told me everything. I walked toward them slowly. Not because I needed time, but because I wanted witnesses. "You brought her here," I said. My voice surprised me. Calm, steady, loud enough. Lucas swallowed. "This isn't our place," I finished. "You brought her to our place." A couple at the nearest table stopped eating. Someone at the bar turned fully in their seat. The host retreated like he sensed incoming damage. The woman finally spoke. "Lucas, you said—" I looked at her then. Really looked. "How long?" I asked her, not him. She blinked. "Excuse me? How long have you been sleeping with my husband?" Lucas stepped forward. "Mara, please, let's not do this here." I laughed. A short sound. Empty. "Oh, we're doing this here," I said. "Because you decided this place could handle it." Silence pressed in around us. Phones stayed down, but eyes were everywhere. She looked at Lucas. "You said you were separated." He didn't answer her. He was staring at me like I'd turned into something unfamiliar. "That's interesting," I said. "Because our daughter asked me this morning if Daddy was coming to her recital next week." That did it. Her hand slid off his arm. "I didn't know," she said quickly. "He told me—" "I know what he told you," I cut in. "He's very good at telling people what they want to hear." Lucas finally raised his voice. "Stop. This is inappropriate." "Inappropriate?" I repeated. "You lying to me for months is inappropriate. You humiliating me in public is just efficient." A server hovered nearby, trapped between duty and disaster. I leaned in closer to Lucas, lowering my voice just enough for him, and everyone close enough, to hear. You chose her. You chose tonight. And you chose this room. He shook his head. I didn't think. That's the only honest thing you've said. I straightened, grabbed my purse, and stepped back. I won't yell, I said. I won't cry. And I won't fight you for explanations you'll change tomorrow. The woman looked like she wanted the floor to open. Lucas reached for me. I stepped away. But hear this, I continued. You don't get to keep my silence. The words landed. I could feel it. In the room. In him. I'm done protecting you, I said. I'm done making things easier. And I'm done pretending this ends quietly. I turned toward the exit. My hands were steady. My legs were strong. Behind me, Lucas said my name again, louder this time. Mara, wait. I stopped at the door, just long enough. I won't make a scene, I said without turning around. I'll make a plan. Then I walked out into the night, the sound of that room buzzing behind me, and something inside my chest finally hardened into resolve. He had no idea what he'd just started. But he was going to learn. Lucas and I didn't start broken. That's the part people always get wrong. They think betrayal grows out of chaos, that marriages fall apart because they were weak from the beginning. Ours wasn't. We met in our early 20s, both restless, both ambitious in different ways. He was charming in that effortless, easygoing way that made people trust him without asking questions. I was steadier, more cautious. The kind of woman who planned 3 steps ahead and believed that loyalty, given long enough, always came back stronger. When we married, we had almost nothing. A rented duplex with thin walls. Furniture passed down from relatives. Big plans scribbled on scrap paper at the kitchen table. Lucas talked about building something of his own, a career that would give us freedom. I believed him. I believed in us. I was the one who moved first. I left a job I loved when his opportunity came up in another city. I told myself it was temporary, that partnerships required flexibility. When we bought our first house, the down payment came from an inheritance my grandmother left me. Lucas insisted we put it in both our names. We're a team, he said. I didn't hesitate. Our daughter came later, after years of trying. The night she was born, Lucas cried harder than I did. He promised her he'd always be there. I believed that too. I built my life around that promise. The warning signs didn't arrive as explosions. They slipped in quietly, dressed as ambition and stress. Late nights became routine. Phone calls taken outside. Work trips stacked closer together. When I asked questions, he smiled and called me anxious. Said I worried too much. Said success required sacrifice. I adjusted. I always did. I handled the school schedules, the doctor appointments, the invisible labor that holds a family together. I stopped asking him to come home earlier. I stopped expecting weekends that belonged to us. Somewhere along the way, his life expanded while mine narrowed. The first time I noticed him hiding his phone, I told myself it was nothing. The second time, I told myself I was being paranoid. The third time, I went quiet. He became protective of his privacy in ways he never had before. Passwords changed, screens angled away, conversations that stopped when I entered a room. When I confronted him, he laughed it off. Said I was reading into things. Said I should trust him. Trust had always been my default. The shift in his affection was harder to explain. He wasn't cruel. He was distant, polite, like someone who had already checked out but hadn't announced it yet. He forgot anniversaries. He stopped touching me unless I initiated. When I pulled away, he didn't notice. The night I asked him directly if there was someone else, he looked offended. How could you even think that? He said. After everything we've built? I apologized. That memory sits heavy now. The financial imbalance crept in the same way. Lucas took over managing our accounts when his income surpassed mine. It made sense, he said. He was better with numbers. He reassured me everything was fine. I trusted him. Again. What I didn't know was how easily trust could be weaponized. The confirmation didn't come from a stranger or a message left open by accident. It came from someone who loved me too much to lie. Our daughter was sitting at the kitchen counter, legs swinging, homework spread in front of her. She looked up at me and hesitated in that way kids do when they don't know if they should speak. "Mom," she said carefully, "why does Dad lie when he's on the phone?" My chest tightened. "What do you mean?" "He says he's talking to work," she said. "But he goes outside and whispers, and sometimes he smiles like he does when he's happy. The words felt too big for her mouth. She went quiet, then added, "And he told me not to tell you. He said it would make you worry for no reason." Something inside me broke cleanly then. Not loudly, not dramatically, just a sharp, final snap. I thanked her for telling me. I told her she hadn't done anything wrong. I held it together until she went to her room. Then I sat at the table alone and replayed every moment I had ignored. The late nights, the guarded phone, the distance. The lies told gently enough to sound reasonable. The stakes became clear in that silence. This wasn't just about a marriage ending. It was about my daughter learning what love looked like. About money I had earned and inherited being quietly rerouted. About a man who believed he could fracture our family and still control the outcome. By the time Lucas came home that night, I already knew the truth. And I knew one more thing just as clearly. I would not let this be the story my daughter grew up thinking was normal. Whatever came next, I was done being the one who looked away. I didn't confront Lucas that night. That was the first real decision I made. I lay awake beside him, listening to his breathing settle into sleep, and I felt something unfamiliar take shape inside me. It wasn't rage. It wasn't grief. It was clarity. Cold. Focused. The kind that doesn't ask questions anymore. By morning, I had already crossed a line he didn't know existed. While he showered, I opened my laptop and searched for a divorce attorney with a reputation for being thorough and quiet. I didn't want drama. I wanted leverage. I filled out a consultation form and booked the first available appointment under my personal email, not the shared one he monitored. Then I opened our bank app. For the first time in years, I didn't just glance at the balance. I went through every account, every transaction, every transfer. The pattern jumped out immediately. Small amounts, frequent enough to blend in. Restaurants, hotels. Ride shares in parts of the city he had no business being in. I took screenshots of everything. When he came downstairs dressed for work, I smiled at him the way I always had. He kissed my cheek. I let him. The lie was already living in him. I wasn't adding anything new. After he left, I moved fast. I called the bank and froze the joint credit line, citing suspected financial misuse. I opened a new account in my name only and transferred the inheritance funds that had originally come from my grandmother. The money was legally mine. I had the documents to prove it. I scanned them and saved copies in 3 places. I contacted a real estate agent recommended by a friend I trusted. I didn't explain much. I didn't need to. I asked what it would take to list the house discreetly. She understood immediately. They always do. Then I packed. Not everything. Just what mattered. Documents, jewelry, my daughter's keepsakes, clothes for both of us. I didn't cry folding his shirts. I didn't slam drawers. I worked like someone preparing for a long trip. At noon, my phone buzzed. "Lucas, can we talk about last night?" he texted. I didn't reply. I met with the attorney that afternoon. She listened without interrupting, her pen moving steadily. When I finished, she leaned back and said, "You're ahead of him." I nodded. "I intend to stay that way." She explained the steps, custody, assets, temporary orders. She didn't sugarcoat anything. I didn't need comfort. I needed confirmation. By the time I picked up my daughter from school, my path was set. That evening, Lucas came home early. That was new. He stood in the doorway longer than usual, scanning the room like something might be missing. His voice was careful. Too careful. "You didn't answer me today." "I was busy," I said. He stepped closer. We need to talk about what happened. I looked at him then. Not the man I married, not the father of my child, but the person standing in front of me now. Smaller somehow. Unsteady. There's nothing to talk about, I said. His brow furrowed. That's not fair. I'm not negotiating fairness anymore. He laughed nervously. You're overreacting. We can work through this. I picked up my purse. No, you can. That was when his phone buzzed. He glanced at it, then back at me. Mara, he said slowly, the bank just locked our credit account. I met his eyes. Yes. What did you do? His voice rose. Why would you do that without telling me? I felt it then. The shift. The moment he realized he wasn't in control. There are consequences now, I said. You should get used to that. He opened his mouth to argue, to explain, to rewrite reality the way he always had. I walked past him instead. Behind me, I heard him call my name again, sharper this time. Panicked. I didn't turn around. I was already moving. The consequences didn't arrive all at once. They spread, quietly at first, like cracks moving through glass. Lucas called me 12 times the next morning. I watched the phone light up on the kitchen counter while I made my daughter breakfast. I didn't answer any of them. Silence had become my first tool, and it worked better than any argument ever had. By mid-morning, the emails started. Confused at first, then irritated, then alarmed. Why is my card declining? The bank says the credit line is frozen. This has to be a mistake. It wasn't. The attorney filed for temporary financial orders that same day. Within hours, Lucas lost access to discretionary funds. His spending limit dropped to what the court considered reasonable. Apparently, hotel rooms and expensive dinners didn't qualify. That was when he began to understand that this wasn't emotional. It was procedural. The real fallout started at his office. Lucas had built his reputation carefully. Family man, reliable, grounded. When he stopped showing up to after-work drinks and client dinners, people noticed. When he started leaving early, phone glued to his ear, people whispered. Someone saw him arguing outside the building, voice sharp, face tight with panic. Someone else noticed he'd stopped wearing his wedding ring, but not in a confident way. In a way that looked desperate. The mistress didn't fare much better. She worked adjacent to his world, close enough for overlap, close enough for questions. When Lucas stopped paying for lunches and rides and weekends away, she noticed too. When he stopped answering her calls during business hours, she pressed harder. I heard about it from someone who didn't know they were feeding me information. She had asked around. Quietly at first. Then less so. Apparently she hadn't known he was married in the way that mattered. Not with shared accounts. Not with a child who noticed lies. Not with a wife who was no longer willing to be discreet. Her confidence unraveled fast once money and protection disappeared. Our social circle shifted next. Friends who had always included us as a unit didn't know what to do with just him. Invitations slowed. Group chats went quiet. Someone asked me, gently, if I was okay. I said yes. That was all they needed to hear. Lucas showed up to a mutual friend's birthday alone and left early. Someone later told me he drank too much and talked too fast. Kept checking his phone. Kept saying things like, "It's complicated," without being asked. Family noticed too. His brother called me that night. He didn't accuse. He didn't pry. "I just want you to know," he said carefully. "I see what's happening." That was all. It was enough. Lucas didn't call his family after that. By the end of the week, the house listing went live. Quietly, but officially. He found out when a neighbor texted him a screenshot. He showed up that evening unannounced. He stood on the porch longer than necessary before knocking. When I opened the door, he looked exhausted, not remorseful, just worn down by a lack of control. "You can't sell the house without talking to me," he said. "I already did," I replied. "This is insane," he snapped. "You're blowing everything up." I held the door frame steady. "No, I'm letting it collapse." His voice dropped. She's gone. I waited. She said this was too much, he continued. She didn't sign up for drama. I almost smiled. That's unfortunate, I said. He stepped closer. You got what you wanted. You made your point. I'm just getting started. That was when the anger finally cracked through his panic. You think you're so calm, he said. But you're hurting everyone. I looked past him, at the quiet street. The life he assumed would stay intact no matter what he did. No, I said. You did that. I'm just not cleaning it up anymore. His phone buzzed. He glanced at it. Then again. Who is it? I asked. He didn't answer. I closed the door. Later that night, another message came through. Please, just talk to me. I set the phone face down and turned off the light. The first consequences had landed, and for the first time since the betrayal, Lucas was the one who couldn't sleep. The courthouse cafe was louder than it looked. It sat just off the main hallway, all glass walls and hard surfaces, the kind of place where voices carried whether people wanted them to or not. Lawyers came here between hearings. Families waited here pretending not to listen. Everyone knew everyone else was watching. I chose it on purpose. Lucas didn't realize what kind of meeting this was until it was already happening. We had mediation scheduled that morning. Preliminary, procedural, nothing final. He showed up tense but hopeful, wearing the version of himself he thought still worked. Calm smile, neutral tone, cooperative posture. The man who believed he could still manage outcomes if he stayed reasonable. The mistress was with him. That part surprised even me. She stood a few steps behind him, arms folded, eyes darting around the room. No confidence this time, no hand on his arm. She looked like someone who had walked into the wrong building and couldn't find the exit. I saw the moment Lucas realized I wasn't alone. My attorney stood up first, hand extended, professional and unreadable. Then I stood. The shift in Lucas's face was immediate. His eyes flicked from me to my attorney to the stack of folders on the table. This is just mediation, he said quickly. Why is she here? I took my seat. Because she's relevant. A few heads turned. Someone at the next table paused mid-sip. The mistress stiffened. Lucas, you said this was private. It is, he snapped, then caught himself. It's supposed to be. My attorney slid one folder forward. We'll be brief. Inside were copies, bank statements, transaction histories, dates, locations. Nothing emotional, just facts. Lucas leaned forward, scanning the pages, his breathing shallow. You're making this worse than it needs to be. I finally spoke. You brought your affair into public when you brought her into our life, I said. This is just where it ends. The mistress leaned over, eyes wide as she read one of the statements. You told me you paid for everything yourself. Lucas didn't look at her. I told you I had access, he muttered. My attorney's voice was calm, almost gentle. Those funds were marital assets. Some were inherited assets that legally did not belong to you. Silence followed. Thick, unavoidable. The woman straightened slowly. So when you said your wife knew... Lucas finally looked at her then. Too late. Her voice shook, but it was loud enough. You told me she was fine with it, that it was complicated but handled. A few people nearby stopped pretending not to listen. That's not what I said, he snapped. She laughed once, sharp. You absolutely did. I watched it happen without moving. This wasn't about humiliation for its own sake. It was exposure. The difference mattered. You used my money, I said to Lucas, my voice steady. You lied to both of us, and you assumed I'd stay quiet. He shook his head. You're trying to destroy me. I met his eyes. No, I'm documenting you. The mistress pushed her chair back. The sound scraped loudly against the floor. I can't do this, she said. This isn't what you promised. Lucas reached for her wrist. She pulled away. Don't touch me. That landed harder than anything I could have said. She grabbed her bag, eyes flicking toward me. For a moment, I thought she might apologize. She didn't. She didn't need to. The damage between us wasn't personal. It was collateral. She walked out through the glass doors without looking back. The room exhaled. Lucas sat frozen, shoulders sagging, the version of himself he relied on gone. People were watching now openly. A lawyer 2 tables over stared at his phone a little too long. Someone whispered. My attorney closed the folder. We'll see you in court, she said. Lucas stood abruptly. You can't just do this. You're ruining my life. I gathered my things slowly, deliberately. No, I said, standing. I'm just no longer participating in the lie that held it together. He looked around, finally aware of the eyes, the silence, the reality of where he was. This didn't have to be public, he said, voice breaking. I paused beside him, leaned in just enough. You made it public the moment you thought I wouldn't fight back. Then I walked out. Behind me, the cafe buzzed with quiet voices and glances that followed him like shadows. The second humiliation stuck harder than the first, because this time he had no one left standing beside him. Lucas tried to regain control the only way he knew how, by rewriting the story. It started quietly. A few carefully worded conversations. Selective truths fed to people he thought would carry them forward. He framed himself as blindsided, confused, pushed out by a wife who had changed. He never said affair. He said misunderstanding. He said separation. He said things had been complicated for a long time. The problem was, lies require coordination. And Lucas had already lost that advantage. The first post appeared 3 days after the courthouse cafe. Not from me. From someone who had watched the scene unfold and recognized him. A vague description at first. No names. Just enough noted details. Location, timeline, behavior, that people began to connect dots. Saw a guy implode at mediation today. Turns out he used marital funds to bankroll an affair and got exposed in public. Brutal. The comments filled in the blanks faster than any investigator could. Someone else added context. A former colleague, a friend of a friend. Screenshots of deleted posts. Old photos resurfaced. He hadn't been as careful as he thought. Then the receipts surfaced. Not leaked by me. Released legally. Filed as part of the record. Public access did the rest. A blogger who specialized in professional misconduct pulled the documents, highlighted patterns, dates, transfers. A timeline that didn't require interpretation. Married executive misuses joint funds during affair while presenting family man image. Lucas's name appeared by noon. By evening, it was everywhere. He called me 5 times that night. Left 2 voicemails. You wanted revenge, he said in the first. You got it. This is out of control. In the second, his voice cracked. Please, you need to tell them to stop. I didn't respond. The backlash came fast and uneven. Some people defended him. Others turned quietly away. Clients postponed meetings. One contract paused, pending review. Another evaporated without explanation. His workplace issued a neutral statement that said nothing and meant everything. The mistress tried to re-enter the story. She posted a message framing herself as misled, manipulated, unaware. She didn't name him, but she didn't have to. Her words aligned too neatly with the receipts already circulating. Lucas responded badly. He commented, then deleted, then commented again. Defensive. Rambling. Contradictory. The internet noticed. Screenshots live longer than apologies. A hashtag appeared the next morning. Small at first, then louder. It wasn't clever. It didn't need to be. It attached his name to a pattern of behavior that was now documented, searchable, permanent. Lucas tried to get ahead of it with a statement. It read like something written by committee. Accountability without responsibility. Regret without acknowledgement. He apologized to those affected and promised to reflect. No one believed him. People don't forgive what they watched happen in real time. The turning point came when someone he trusted turned. An old business partner released an email thread showing Lucas had asked him to help move funds, temporarily, months earlier. The implication was clear. This wasn't a mistake. It was planned. The story shifted from scandal to exposure. Lucas stopped going out, stopped posting, stopped responding. When he did show up somewhere, people watched him differently, not with curiosity, with judgment. He tried to blame me, told mutual acquaintances I was vindictive, unstable, overreacting. It backfired. By then, the narrative had moved past personal drama. It was about credibility, about accountability, about a man who thought he could compartmentalize his life and got caught when the walls collapsed. My phone buzzed constantly, not with sympathy but with confirmation. I didn't know, but I believe you now. I saw the documents. I'm sorry I didn't see it sooner. I stayed quiet, not out of kindness, out of strategy. The louder he got, the worse it looked. The more he spun, the clearer the truth became. By the end of the week, Lucas was fully exposed. Not because I screamed, but because I stepped aside and let the facts stand on their own. He had tried to control the narrative. Instead, the narrative swallowed him, and there was nothing left for him to hide behind. The collapse didn't look dramatic from the outside. No shouting matches, no police, no viral videos of him being escorted anywhere. It was quieter than that, which made it worse. The court moved faster once the documentation was complete. Temporary orders became permanent restraints. Accounts were audited, transactions flagged. The money Lucas thought was fluid turned rigid under scrutiny. The inheritance funds were formally separated. The judge didn't hesitate. They were never his. They never should have been touched. Marital assets were divided with precision, not mercy. The house sale closed within weeks. Proceeds were held in escrow pending final judgment. Lucas complained it was unfair. The court didn't respond. Custody was settled without theatrics. Primary residence awarded to me. His visitation structured, supervised at first, not as punishment, but as precaution. The court cited instability during transitional behavior. That language stuck with him. He hadn't expected that part. He told people I was weaponizing the system. What he didn't understand was that the system simply noticed patterns once I stopped shielding him from them. His lawyer stopped returning his calls as quickly. Then came the professional damage. 2 contracts terminated quietly. One client cited values misalignment. Another cited risk management. No one mentioned the affair. They didn't need to. His income dropped fast, faster than he could adjust his lifestyle. The credit freeze stayed in place until final settlement. The cards he relied on declined. His lease application for a new place was rejected after a background check flagged pending litigation. He moved into a short-term rental on the edge of the city. Then, out of that. Then into a friend's spare room. The friend didn't let him stay long. Family fallout landed next. His father called me first, not to argue, not to defend. I raised him better than this, he said quietly. I didn't disagree. Within days, his parents withdrew financial support they'd offered during the transition. They stopped covering his legal expenses. His brother stopped answering his calls. A cousin unfollowed him publicly. That small gesture traveled farther than anyone expected. The mistress disappeared completely. Her social media went dark. Her job transferred her out of state. The last I heard, she moved back in with her sister and started over under a different version of her name. Lucas tried to frame her exit as betrayal. He didn't see the irony. By the time the final hearing arrived, he looked smaller than I remembered. Thinner, worn. He avoided eye contact. His confidence, the thing that used to carry him through everything, was gone. The judge finalized the decree without commentary. Just facts. Just consequences. When it was over, Lucas stood in the hallway for a long time, like he was waiting for someone to tell him where to go next. No one did. I walked past him without slowing. Later that week, I heard he'd tried to borrow money from an old colleague. Then another. Then another. Each said no. Quietly, respectfully, permanently. The story had closed for them. For my daughter, things stabilized. The routines returned. School, activities. Normalcy rebuilt piece by piece. She stopped asking why he whispered on the phone. She stopped watching the door. That mattered more than anything else. As for Lucas, isolation set in where entitlement used to live. The world didn't turn against him loudly. It simply stopped accommodating him. No house, no access, no audience, just consequences catching up to choices he thought would stay invisible. By the time he finally reached out again, he wasn't angry. He was desperate. And for the first time since the beginning, he understood what it felt like to lose everything quietly. Lucas asked to meet on a Tuesday afternoon. Not a weekend. Not a night. Tuesday at 3. The hour people choose when they don't want witnesses, but can't stand being alone anymore. He suggested a coffee shop near the courthouse. Neutral ground. Familiar. I declined. Instead, I told him to meet me at the park near our old house, the one with the long walking path and the benches that faced the water. The place where we used to take our daughter on Sunday mornings before everything fractured. He agreed too quickly. That told me he would have agreed to anything. I arrived first. I sat on the bench and watched the water move. Calm, indifferent. The world had not paused for our disaster. That felt important to remember. When Lucas appeared at the edge of the path, I almost didn't recognize him. His shoulders slumped forward now, like he was bracing for impact that never came. His clothes were clean but worn, chosen for utility instead of impression. He hesitated when he saw me, then walked over slowly, like he was approaching something fragile. "Mara," he said. I nodded. "You can sit." He did, leaving space between us. Too much space for comfort, too little for distance. For a long moment, he didn't speak. He stared at the water like it might offer him a script. "I didn't think it would end like this," he finally said. I didn't answer. "I've lost everything," he continued. "My job, my home, my family. I don't even recognize my life anymore." I looked at him then. Really looked. "You recognize it," I said. "You just don't like it." He flinched. "I know I made mistakes," he said quickly. "I know I hurt you, but this went too far." I waited. He turned to me, eyes red-rimmed. "I'm asking for mercy." There it was. Not accountability. Not repair. Mercy. "You're asking the wrong person," I said. He swallowed. "I just want a chance to fix things. With you, with our daughter. I can change." I felt something then. Not anger, not pity, but a quiet certainty. "No," I said. "You want relief." "That's not—" "You don't miss me," I continued. "You miss the version of your life where someone absorbed the impact for you, where consequences were delayed or softened." His voice rose. "That's not fair." I turned fully toward him. "Fair was me trusting you," I said. "Fair was me building a life around your promises. Fair was me protecting your image even when it cost me my peace." He shook his head. "I was under pressure." "You don't understand." "I understand perfectly," I cut in. "You made choices when no one was watching. Now everyone has seen them." His hands trembled. "I didn't mean to lose you." I stood. That startled him. "You didn't mean to get caught," I said. "There's a difference." He stood too, panic sharpening his movements. "Please, don't do this. Don't walk away like this is nothing." I picked up my bag. "It isn't nothing. It's just finished." He stepped in front of me. Too close, desperate. "I can't survive like this," he said. I held his gaze, steady and unflinching. "You will," I said. "You'll just have to do it without me." Something in him broke then. Not loudly, not dramatically. His face collapsed inward, like the last structure holding him up had finally failed. "I loved you," he said, almost to himself. I believed that he believed it. "That doesn't excuse what you did," I replied. "And it doesn't obligate me to stay." He reached out, stopping just short of touching my arm. "Mara, please." I stepped back. "This is the last time we meet like this," I said. "From now on, communication goes through attorneys or schedules. About our daughter only." He nodded weakly. I turned to leave. Behind me, his voice cracked. "Was any of it real?" I stopped. Not because I owed him an answer, but because I wanted to end it cleanly. Yes, I said without turning around. It was real. Then I added calmly, precisely. And that's why you don't get to destroy it and still keep me. I walked away. I didn't look back. I didn't need to. The chapter closed the moment I chose myself, and didn't apologize for it. A year passed without ceremony. No countdown, no dramatic milestone. Just days stacking quietly on top of each other until one morning I realized my chest no longer tightened when my phone buzzed. My body had learned what safety felt like again. We moved into a smaller house across town. Light-filled, manageable. Ours. My daughter chose the paint for her room and insisted on hanging her own pictures crooked on the wall. I let them stay that way. Not everything needs to be corrected to be right. Our routines became solid. Breakfast at the table. School drop-offs without tension. Evenings that didn't revolve around waiting for someone who might not show up. She laughed more. Slept better. Stopped asking questions that had no age-appropriate answers. That was how I measured success. Work shifted too. I took on projects I'd passed over before, said yes without asking permission. My confidence didn't return all at once. It rebuilt slowly, through competence, through proving to myself that I could stand fully inside my own life again. The money stabilized, then grew. Not extravagantly, sustainably. Clean accounts, clear boundaries. Nothing hidden. I slept deeply for the first time in years. Every now and then, someone would mention Lucas. Usually by accident, usually with discomfort. He'd moved again, changed jobs again, started over again. He wasn't doing well. Not tragically, not dramatically. Just diminished. The world didn't punish him. It simply stopped rewarding him. He showed up to custody exchanges quieter now. Polite, careful, like someone who understood that every interaction was being evaluated, not by me, but by reality itself. He no longer tried to explain himself. That part of him was gone. Once, as he buckled our daughter into the car, he looked at me and said, "You seem good." I nodded. "I am." That was the entire conversation. I didn't need him to see my growth. I needed my daughter to feel it. There were moments, early on, when anger still surfaced. Sharp flashes of it. Grief, too. For the version of my life I'd believed in. For the years I'd spent negotiating my own needs down to fit someone else's comfort. But those feelings stopped owning the room. They came and went like weather instead of living inside my bones. Freedom feels like that. Not euphoric. Not loud. Just steady. I stopped checking who knew what about the story. Stopped caring whether his name still carried weight in rooms I no longer entered. My life had moved on before his reputation finished unraveling. That mattered. One evening my daughter asked me something unexpected. "Mom," she said, brushing her teeth, "how did you know when to leave?" I didn't answer right away. "I knew when staying meant teaching you the wrong lesson," I finally said. She nodded like that made sense. Kids understand truth faster than adults do. The past didn't vanish. It didn't need to. It became context instead of control. A chapter instead of the whole book. I learned that betrayal doesn't end a life. Silence does. Fear does. The willingness to keep absorbing harm does. Walking away isn't weakness when you do it with clarity. It's alignment. Lucas lost what he thought was security. I gained something quieter and stronger. Ownership of myself. No one applauded. No one handed me a trophy. That was fine. The reward was waking up every day in a life that no longer required me to disappear in order to survive. Betrayal taught me that loyalty without boundaries is just slow erosion. Freedom taught me this instead. When you stop protecting what hurts you, you finally have room to build what heals you. Thank you for staying with me until the end. If this story moved you, surprised you, or made you feel seen, do me a small favor. Click the hype button and let it know this message mattered. I'd also love to hear from you, so share your thoughts or your own experience in the comments below. You're not alone here. And if you want more stories like this, real, raw, and honest, hit the like button and subscribe. Your support helps these stories reach the people who need them most.